Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. I do appreciate you being with me. Hope your week has gone really well so far. And don't forget our we'll call it our three-book special. Nonetheless, we shall meet him in the air, the wedding of the King of Kings, Hosea, 30 lessons on Hosea, which discusses God divorcing, departing, God putting Israel to death, but the promise that he would return, that he would remarry her and raise her from the dead. Okay? All of that and much, much, much more, especially the correlation between Hosea and the resurrection promise of 1 Corinthians 15 is found in here. Now, normally, if you purchased all three of these books, including Have Heaven and Earth Passed Away, your total cost would be $56.80. All right, that's including separate shipping on each one of these. During the month of September, all right, when you purchase, we shall meet him in the air, the wedding of the King of Kings, and Hosea, I'm going to give you free of charge, Have Heaven and Earth Passed Away. Now, that's $5.95 plus $4.95 shipping all by itself, all right? Your total delivered price on the three-item package for the month of September, $35. And by the way, I've just got to make note of this. Two things very quickly, and I hope you'll indulge me here. I've had several people contact me privately lately saying, Don, at first when you would when I was watching your videos and you were selling your books, I was a little put off by that. But I finally began to see the force of what you were saying in your videos, and I wanted to know more. And now I've been reading the books. I've purchased your books, and I'm absolutely thrilled to death that you offer the books. Because this, to use the terminology of one or two of them, your books are a treasure trove that gives so much more information than you do in your videos. And as I've shared with many on YouTube, listen, my ministry is supported in two ways. Number one, by contributions from people who believe in the message that we are sharing. They're tax exempt. And number two, by the sales of the books. It is because of your interest in the books, because you purchase my books, that allows us to keep doing what we're doing, i.e. bringing you these videos. So, it's not necessarily that I like to sell my books, take the time to do that, but it's a necessary element of my ministry in order for us to keep doing what we are doing. And again, I've received several emails lately, private messages telling me, hey, I didn't particularly like it at first, but now I love it. Now, the second point is this. If you've been watching my videos lately, then you know I have eliminated all ads because YouTube just kept inserting one ad after another, many of which I strongly, and categorically disagree with. Well, here's the deal. And by the way, some of you have contacted me and say, hey, this is really cool. Okay, that's fine. But guess what, folks? The ads were another way of supporting my ministry. So if you appreciate the fact that I have eliminated all ads that interrupt what I'm saying, if you appreciate that, let me ask that you please consider supporting our ministry. I am up well over 5,000 subscribers. If each one of my subscribers went to PayPal and sent us a gift of $5, $10, $20, a great deal of our financial problems, and yeah, we run extremely close, sometimes at a deficit. But if each one of you, my subscribers, would simply go to PayPal and send us as a gift $5, $10, $15, $20, or more. It would relieve a lot of pressure from us. And you could do that as a gesture of appreciation for the fact that I have eliminated the ads from my videos. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm not going to apologize for taking the time. I just wanted to explain what we have done and the needs which we have and the way that you can express your appreciation for what we are trying to bring you on a continuing basis. Now, I mentioned to you yesterday, and remember, we're on the Olivet DIscourse, Matthew 25. We're examining the parable of the 5 wise, 5 foolish virgins, and the coming of the bridegroom for the wedding. I've shared with you how God was married to the 10 northern tribes, but he divorced them due to their adulterous ways. Said in Jeremiah chapter 3, speaking of the 10 northern tribes, because of her adulterous ways, I wrote her a bill of divorcement. Let me say again, you can't divorce someone to whom you're not married. It's not possible. Kind of like Isaiah 54, speaking to Israel, your husband or your maker is your husband. Okay, so because of Israel's adultery, God wrote her the bill of divorcement. He brought upon her her harvest. What was the harvest? He destroyed her earthly, nationalistic, geopolitical, militaristic kingdom. Wiped it out. Hosea 1, verse 3. Amos 9, verse 9. But he promised he would save a righteous remnant. Amos chapter 5. The virgin daughter of Israel is fallen. And listen to this, shall not rise again. You catch the power of that? God was going to destroy the kingdom of Israel, and that kingdom would never rise again. But you see, Judah was even more wicked than Israel, the 10 tribes. Jeremiah chapter 3, 8 and following. But as I have expressed it before, Yahweh could not divorce Judah, because when he said that in Jeremiah chapter 3, the Messiah had not come. Oh, but as I shared with you yesterday from Jeremiah chapter 23, speaking of Coniah, write this man childless, for none of his seed would ever sit on the throne of David in the city of Jerusalem and in Judah again. Never. Wait a minute. What about Jesus? Yeah, he was of the tribe of Judah. Was he to be the king? Yes. But he would never sit on the throne of David in Jerusalem, period. He would sit on the throne of David, but David's throne is in the heavens, Acts chapter 2, 29 and following. Oh, but I got to get back to the harvest. God brought on Israel, the 10 tribes, the harvest for her adultery. You have sown the wind, you will reap the whirlwind. The harvest, the time of her reaping her harvest, was in the destruction of her nationalistic, geopolitical, militaristic kingdom. And then this remarkable statement. Remember, Jeremiah tells us Judah became more wicked even than the 10 northern tribes. So God wasn't going to let Judah off the hook. Here's what he said in Hosea 3, verse 11. O Judah, a harvest is appointed for you. What kind of harvest? Well, what kind of harvest did Israel get? Destruction of the nationalistic, physical kingdom. Judah, a harvest is appointed for you. Lord, when would that be? When I return the captives of my people. The Lord said Judah's harvest would be at the return of the captives. Or to put this another way, at the time of the salvation of the remnant. Now we see this promise of the return of the remnant in a twofold way. One typological, the other fulfillment. In the return from the Babylonian captivity, which was in essence the return from the Assyrian captivity, because after all, Assyria took the 10 northern tribes into captivity. Then Babylon destroyed Assyria, which means, guess what? The 10 northern tribes were in Babylonian captivity. I said that at a conference one time, and I had a guy just absolutely go ballistic on me. And he said, that's the worst form of false doctrine I've ever heard. What's false about it? Assyria destroyed the 10 tribes, carried them off into captivity. Babylon destroyed Assyria, took over all of her territory, and that means the 10 northern tribes were now in Babylonian captivity, by the way, which is why Josephus said that the 10 northern tribes were in Babylon. That's why he said that. Okay, so the harvest of Judah would be at the time of the salvation of the remnant. That's the ultimate fulfillment. There was a remnant that returned from Babylon, a small remnant according to Ezra, according to Nehemiah. Very small remnant, because all 12 tribes were represented when the temple was rebuilt, and they offered 12 sacrifices, one for each of the 12 tribes. Ezra chapter 6 and 7. But then we come to the time of Jesus. In the time of Jesus, the 10 northern tribes are still dispersed. Their physical kingdom has been utterly wiped off the face of the earth. You have the Samaritans possessing their land. And the Samaritans were, to use the terminology, a bunch of half-breeds, considered so by Judah. The rabbis had a saying. There are 3 things the Lord hates, and you'll have to excuse me, but I mean this is what they said. Samaritans, Gentiles, and women. Yeah, some rabbis said that. They were undoubtedly married, so that might say a whole lot about it. But anyway, the point is, the Samaritans were not considered true Israelites. Now, God said that in the days of the bringing back of the captivity, in the days of the return of the righteous remnant, Judah would receive her harvest. Jesus came in the last days, Hebrews 1:1 and 2, Galatians 4, verse 4. And he came at a time in which Judah and Benjamin are the only remaining tribes. And in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus says, and I'm going to begin reading with verse 36. Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house. And his disciples came to him saying, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. You remember the parable? Man went out and he sowed seed in his field. It began to grow up, but there were tares among them. His servants came and said, Lord, there are tares. Do you want us to go out and separate the tares from the wheat? And the Lord says, no, let them both grow up until the time of the harvest. So, the disciples said, explain to us the parable of the tares. He answered and said to them, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Folks, ask yourself the question, what harvest was Judah looking for? Let's continue. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels. They will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and those who practice lawlessness will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing, gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous, who is this righteous? It's the righteous remnant of Hosea 6:11. Here's the time of the harvest. It's at the end of the age. Well, whose age is it going to be? It's the end of the age of Judah and Benjamin. It's the end of the old covenant kingdom. Remember, God said, I'm going to destroy the kingdom of Jezreel, or the day of Jezreel. I'm going to destroy the kingdom of Israel, not the house, but I'm going to destroy the kingdom from off the face of the earth. And Judah has her similar harvest. Here is Jesus dealing with Judah and Benjamin, saying, harvest is coming at the end of the age. Now look, folks, in order to get this to be anything but the harvest of Judah at the end of her age, you have to completely and totally ignore the fact that Jesus' entire mission was the fulfillment of Old Covenant Israel's Old Covenant promises. You have to be able to completely divorce the promise of the harvest of Judah at the time of the salvation of the remnant from this promise of Matthew 13 at the time of the harvest, when the righteous would be gathered into the kingdom, the new covenant kingdom. Oh my goodness, we got so much. I'm out of time. I hope you can begin to see the holistic view of the wedding. Because you see, this time of the coming of the Son of Man at the time of the harvest of Judah is the time of the coming of the destruction of the old covenant kingdom and the establishment of the new covenant. The new wedding covenant. But you see, before God could remarry old covenant Israel, before he could remarry old covenant Judah, Judah had to receive her harvest, her divorcement, just as Israel had, so that God could give a new covenant, unlike the old, so that God could establish a kingdom unlike the old, so that God could establish a people unlike the old, so that God could give a new name unlike the old. Whew. And boy, yeah, we've got more. Don't forget, take advantage of our September special, all right? We shall meet him in the air, the wedding of the King of Kings. Yes, I develop all of this in this book. Hosea, 30 lessons on the source of Paul's doctrine of the resurrection, in which I cover all of this. And included free of charge is Have Heaven and Earth Passed Away. Normally $56.80 if you purchase each piece separately and paid shipping. Your total delivered price for the month of September, $35. U.S. orders only. If you want PDFs, contact me at even less of a price. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. Do not forget, we will continue our discussion of Mr. Paul Ellis's book, AD 70 and the End of the World, tomorrow. So I will see you on the flip side.